Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Oh, how's it going, gentlemen? Welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. As always, I am your host, Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on X and on YouTube, just about every major social media network except for Instagram and I guess Threads now, which guess what? I don't even use. I got too much going on already, but I'm at Real Scott McKay on either of those if you so choose to take a look. The website is mountaintoppodcast.com and the Facebook group, as always, is Mountaintop Summit. Hey, lots of you guys joining very, very recently. This is suddenly looking more and more like a movement every day of you guys who really just want to learn how to have fun again, take yourself a little bit less seriously, and get better with women and with the relationships in your life all the while. So be sure to go to the Mountaintop Summit on Facebook and join us. With me today is a new friend of mine. I enjoyed her company immediately as soon as I met her. She's a lot of fun. She lives in New York City. Her name is Jaclyn London, and here's what she does, gentlemen. She is not only a registered dietitian. I mean, you see this coming, right? You know we're about to get a spanking from this lady. She is also an author, and she's a consultant. And not only does she empower you and me, and I would assume herself too, and many others, to make empowered food choices, get this. She's got over 10 years experience in helping people spot the science over the scams out there. And there are a lot of scams on what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. Jaclyn London, who is ironically from New York and has a New York accent instead of a British one. We already established that her name is actually pronounced Jaclyn London, not like Madame Bouquet from Putting on Appearances, the old BBC comedy show or anything like that. Jaclyn London, welcome to the show.
Scott, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me. I am thrilled.
Whatever happened to oat bran? Remember oat bran in the 80s? Everybody was supposed to eat oat bran to get your cholesterol down. I haven't heard about oat bran in 30 years. Fad.
I would say there's real science there. There is real science there. But interestingly, we have taken it, as we've done with so many other things that have evolved in nutrition science since the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, is we've taken it and run with it. So now you'll see things like oatmeal plus fiber or fiber bars, or, it's like there's so much on the topic of fiber, and there is very real science on fiber. And interestingly, I'd say oat bran is the least offensive. It's because it comes from an actual food, which is honestly so much of my work, Scott, is trying to get people to eat real food versus consume so much of the crap that's out there, from dietary supplements that are unregulated and perhaps not adhering to the strictest safety standards, or foods that are not dietary supplements, but are they really food? Because really they're just a jumble of ingredients. So I kind of miss oat bran is my point. Remember crackling oat bran? That was such a great cereal.
That was actually really good. Yeah. It tasted extra good in milk. Maybe you should have red hats that say, make oat bran great again.
I think we might need that. Maca, right?
Mobka, make oat bran great again. Yeah, we would be Mobka fascists.
I love it.
Wearing our red hats around, I suppose. All right. So, remember people were taking fen and it was like this big thing. And now you can't take that because it destroys your heart in 3 easy doses. Exactly. And now people are taking Ozempic, trying to lose weight. God knows what's in that stuff. We're going to find out a year and a half from now. Oh, don't take that. Y'all are going to die. And people are going to be like, thanks a lot. Really appreciate that, FDA. Nice job. So, I guess the moral of this story is there are fad foods that come and go. There are fad diet trends that come and go, including pharmaceuticals. And I don't know if you're like me, but the fewer pharmaceuticals I take, the better. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing you're probably the same as a dietitian. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. Listen, it seems like and I say this with extreme caution, right? It seems like some of these GLP-1 medications, which are not actually very new, they have been around for a while. That's the Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, but they've been around for a while in the form of patient care and the medical intervention for diabetes. They weren't necessarily weight loss medications, right? So they've been newly approved as weight loss medications, some of them. But I'm not super worried about some, unforeseen safety concerns for people with diabetes. I am concerned about, we don't know that much about them long term for people who are using them just for weight loss. And I am with you, Scott, like in general. I think the fewer pharmaceuticals, the better, just as a general statement. But that being said, there are some people for whom these are the perfect, it's sort of a match made in heaven of a medical treatment and a kind of genotype of person who may actually really benefit from these. So I can't be completely dismissive of the whole category, but I can say that perhaps they're being overprescribed. I think that's something we've definitely been more and more aware of as we see this as like the headlines that are like Hollywood's weight loss blockbuster drug, right? Like that's this is not a medication you go on to lose 20 pounds for a friend's wedding. This is a medication you go on if you've really struggled with overweight or obesity your entire life and are finally feeling like there might be a solution that really could be powerful for you.
Well, someone's got to get the memo out there that both Hollywood and Blockbuster are long since out of business. So it's time to move on. There's one guy in this audience right now who's going, I wonder if crack and heroin count as pharmaceuticals. There's that guy. One guy out there, Then you got medicinal marijuana.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother show. I mean, not this one. All right. So here's what I want to talk about from here. We've covered the pharmaceuticals very quickly. Man, we're moving at a lightning pace.
We're going lightning speed.
These guys are getting vertigo out there. Their heads are spinning because, you're from New York. I'm originally from back east, and I can move into that mode pretty quickly, as you know.
We talk fast. We do.
Yeah, we do. And we also talk over each other and have multiple conversations at once at the Thanksgiving table as a family.
We love to do that, yes.
Yeah, It drives people nuts. I recently went home and visited my family, home being now North Carolina because everybody moved there, but it's close to Baltimore, where I'm from, right? Relative to San Antonio, Texas. And the family started doing that at this big dinner for my mom's birthday party, and my head started spinning. I'm too far removed from it now. I've gotten to the point where that I not only notice it, but it bothers me. Meanwhile, the whole mishpucha around me is like going on and on and on. And I'm just like looking at my wife smiling and, whispering, I love you, to her.
Right.
Because that's the only conversation we can have. All right. So fad diets. So we've had all these fad diets come and go. And with it, often conflicting advice coming and going, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had the cabbage soup diet from years ago, which just sounded silly, right? That was one you reminded me of before we started here. Yeah. And nowadays we've gone from paleo to keto. And, if you're insulin resistant, keto is amazing. Then you have people saying you need to eat 6 small meals a day and other people saying you need to only eat within a 4-hour window and do the intermittent fasting thing. Mm-hmm. Here's what I've heard, and I'm going to let you riff on this.
Okay.
Despite the fact that certainly, clearly, there are fad diets, and maybe a lot of them don't work. A lot of it depends on your body chemistry, your body type, and what's going to work for you and how your particular body processes fat loss or staying healthy. What do you think?
I think you're spot on all of that. I think, the beautiful thing about nutrition and something that kind of keeps me going in all of this with all of the fads that are out there is that there are a couple of basics that I think just about everyone could stand to do more of. And they're not, a lot of the feedback that I get, Scott, from people is like, I have no idea what to do because I've already cut everything out, or I've already restricted, or I've already eliminated blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I've never seen any of those be successful. They may be successful for the short term. And I'm sure that you've got listeners right now thinking, like rolling their eyes at me going, well, I've been keto for however long, and it actually really works for me to go without carbs. And
what are you saying that, like, for example, a person may say, man, I'm down to cabbage soup. That's all I'm eating. And I'm still not losing weight, right?
Right. I mean, there may be some people out there who feel like that. There may be some people who really are experiencing that, who are really doing that, who have cut out basically everything else. And they're like, I'm only eating chicken breast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Things that's sort of the modern day cabbage soup, right? But to that, I would say that for anything to be long-term, like for you to actually adopt any type of new habits that are truly health promoting for you, they have to be ones that are slightly outside of your comfort zone. Like they can't just be things that you roll over and you're like, this is so easy, because then you're really not changing, right? Like if something feels super easy to you, you're really not making any progress toward any specific goal. But it has to be challenging enough, but also it has to feel like something that you can continue to do. Will it be slightly challenging? Yes, but that shouldn't mean that it's exclusive, that it can't happen within the realities of your current everyday lifestyle.
Well, yeah, if you can't make it a lifestyle choice, then you're just going to be on a yo-yo diet all over again months later. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
The number one thing that I've seen be the most effective with working across different patient populations with different people, the number one thing that works the best, and this is back to your point about intermittent fasting, the number one thing that works above intermittent fasting is staying consistent. What do I mean by that? I mean, literally getting people to eat consistently throughout the day, every 3 to 4 hours, starting with breakfast. And I know that is probably going to piss some people off. It's probably going to make some people upset, right? But I say that from both research and my real life practice as a clinician. The sooner you can start to be consistent and practice making more consistent meals, the more you become in touch with your body's own hunger and satiety cues. It's like the sooner you learn a little bit more about yourself, like you get more data about yourself, you start realizing exactly when you're hungry, what foods make you feel satisfied, not just full. It's a huge thing I work on with so many clients. But the beauty of consistency is that never getting too hungry or feeling too stuffed, feeling too full really has this huge benefit of helping people cut back overall, start making simple shifts to their everyday eating patterns that include more nutritious foods and less of the nutrient poor foods, and just helps people feel more energized and focused overall, which is something I know so many of us are really looking for. And in the process, lose weight if that's part of their goal, gain muscle if that's part of their goal, lose fat mass. Those are huge components. But if you think about it, fuel really is everything that we need in life. But eating that every 3 to 4 hour window, that consistency effect has huge benefits for so many of us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You were talking about eating every 3 or 4 hours, and you see these people who are mostly, I think, in the fitness realm, like bodybuilders and like CrossFit athletes, et cetera, who are saying, yeah, I eat 6 small meals a day and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's one of those dietary recommendations we hear, to eat 6 small meals a day, but we don't even really know what it means. And some guy kind of adjusts his belt and goes, well, you know what? I only ate 3 breakfast tacos this morning. I usually eat 6. So that's my first small meal of the day, I don't think that counts. What counts as a small meal if you're eating 6 a day?
I think that it is really going to depend on you, your needs, your lifestyle. If I could give one small tip that would help kind of frame how you think about meals and snacks, is that, first of all, I don't think it has to be small necessarily. Every one of these has to look like some sort of picture of health, or that it has to be some kind of, I've ragged on it before, but the dry chicken breast.
Oh God, you'll die. You can't, it's unsustainable.
Right. It's unsustainable. So I think what my main tip would be is that you're combining a source of protein with a source of fiber. So we talked about oat bran, but that's probably the most extreme version. Like, what about just a piece of fruit? Or a piece of toast, or you're having something like your dry chicken breast. Maybe you like dry chicken breast and you're having it with some rice, right? So having that combo of protein with fiber, research has shown us that actually the combo of these 2 nutrients can help us fill up and also stay satisfied for longer, which creates a better, more stable kind of release of energy into our bloodstream, which helps us do everything else that we want to do in a day, because so many of us are eating for the joy of eating, but we also eat for fuel, right? Like, we need fuel in order to live and in order to power our everyday lives. So it's really important to keep both of those in mind. We want it to be things that we enjoy the taste of, but that also give us that fuel, that power to keep doing what we love.
Jaclyn, I once asked a guy before I went on my own weight loss journey, how he lost all the weight. And he goes, 2 things. First of all, I stopped living to eat, and now I eat to live. And I said, that's really fascinating. And he goes, another way that I would put that's probably even more powerful, at least it was to me, is I treat food like a drug. I just take the prescribed dose and I treat anything above and beyond that as an overdose and therefore dangerous. And I thought that was fascinating. And kind of coupled along with that, you talked about this idea of eating not only to the point of feeling full, but being satisfied. And I think you just touched upon the difference there, but could you clarify the difference between being full and being satisfied eating?
Yes. So because this is timely for us, Scott, and perhaps for your listeners will be listening to this at a different time, but I will use the example that I do often use no matter what time of year it is.
Oh, here come the holidays.
Exactly.
Here we go. All right.
So Thanksgiving, there's a special type of full that happens on Thanksgiving, right? It's like you're stuffed. You're
just like we all have a special cousin. It's kind of along the same same idea there.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. You are the Thanksgiving turkey. Like you're like, I am so full, I cannot possibly eat anymore.
I'm the crazy uncle in my family, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. We all need one. We do.
I know. My nieces and nephews adore me. Much to the chagrin of their parents sometimes, but go ahead.
So cute. Yeah. So much of that kind of experience, of that feeling where you're like, I'm so stuffed and I just don't know what to do with myself. And I just feel like I need to lay down. It's an
awful feeling.
It's a terrible feeling, right? But a lot of us are eating to that point without necessarily realizing it. And yet, if you were to bring out the pies at the end of the Thanksgiving meal, right? Like imagine you just kind of feel that way before.
Oh my God. I could so relate to what you're about to say. Not often I would weigh, it would be my 600-pound life. I'd be like, the all-time winner of that show. If I ate consistently like you're talking about, but I do have a very good story to tell after you're done explaining what you're talking about. Go ahead. Tell us about that.
My point is to just keep in mind that feeling, right? And that sometimes you can be full, but you're not completely satisfied, right? You're not completely satisfied because you've maybe filled up so much on just the turkey, or you filled up so much on just the sides. Right. So, and that's where I come back to my point about consuming protein and fiber together. It is a satiety promoting combo of those nutrients, which is what helps us stay satisfied, actually feel fuller longer, and therefore not feel like that susceptibility to just graze on, random office donuts or the snacks that are around, right? So it's that combo of the two nutrients together that is what's really going to help us do that. And doing so consistently can help us get in that pattern of actually feeling satisfied when we eat and not just full. And so I wrote my book, Dressing on the Side and Other Diet Myths Debunked. It came out in 2019. And the phrase that I
think some of the guys are already taking out their binoculars.
I love it. I love it. So,
but I know what you mean. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So when I wrote the book, I coined this phrase full, but not satisfied syndrome, right? Which is when you feel like you've got that second stomach, like you could still eat for something else, but even though you're stuffed, right? That's what I was really getting at there.
Wow. It's so true.
It's so true. And it so happens to us so often when we are on one of these fad diets, right? Like if you're going vegan for the sake of being vegan, then you're missing out on potentially a lot of protein sources that could actually help you with that satiety promoting combo of protein and fiber, right? If you're keto, then you're only getting the protein and the fat. You're not getting as much of the fiber. So it really creates that, like, I'm stuffed from steak, but I could still eat, right? I'm not satisfied. So considering that combination of two nutrients and staying consistent with how often you're eating, those are two of the most powerful tips that I can give anyone listening right now.
Okay. I don't ever stuff myself to the point of like, I can't eat another bite,
yeah,
just one wafer thin mince or, Monty Python movie style. I think I'm going to swallow up, I don't do that. Okay.
Right.
But when I do, it's at one restaurant, and it's called Chamagaucha here in San Antonio, which is consistently the number one restaurant in the city. It probably seats 250 people. That's probably conservative. And you need a month ahead of time to get a reservation. We don't give out Michelin stars in this city.
Okay.
But I mean, and I'm not sure how many seats you can have in a Michelin starred restaurant. This place is the size of a college cafeteria, and it is stuffed constantly. And so is everybody in it. The guy used to work for a Brazilian churrascaria chain called Fogo de Chao, which is national.
Yeah.
And he said, this place sucks. I'm going to make it better. And he did. He 10x'd Fogo de Chao. Oh my God. Those poor cows had no idea how delicious they were going to be someday. Okay. And
I'm
sure
looking
enough,
at the menu as you talk. Yeah.
Oh, you already pulled this one up. You're all over this, like white on your proverbial rice you're talking about.
Exactly.
All right. So this place is insanely good. Okay. I mean, we've got barbecue places here who win the barbecue cook-off, and they'll throw out the brisket and everything over at Black's Barbecue and Kreitz Market out in Lockhart, Texas. that tastes like Arby's compared to this place. Okay. Fogo de Chao is like Taco Bell compared to this place.
Amazing.
And I eat my brains out at this place without apology because it's expensive.
Yes.
And that's the only time I do it. And it's funny. They'll say to you when they come out, last time the waitress was so adorable. She was one of these cute little Latinas who says, of course, a lot, which knocks me out. And so they have this salad bar, which has got everything on it you'd never buy yourself because it's like $65 a pound for broccolini or something. And you eat, and they say, don't fill up on all the vegetables because you need to save room for what you really came here for. But I always actually do a nice healthy round of the vegetables for the same reason you're talking about. Because if I eat only ribeye and picanha and, oh, God help us all, bacon wrapped filet mignons for an hour and a half, I will feel awful when I'm done. But when I kind of prime my appetite with the veggies, I feel much better when I leave. But that's not where the story ends, okay? By the way, when guys come here for what I call a 10 plus live, which is a 4-day infield experience, it's a first class experience. And unless the guy's like a vegan or whatever, we always take them to this restaurant on Saturday night, when they're starting to get their breakthroughs. Kind of like it's a wonderful way just to relax and celebrate. Every guy who's ever been here, which includes guys who have lots of money, guys who've sold their businesses. One guy just said he had eaten at the French Laundry and this place was better. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, in terms of the food.
I'm ready.
Better. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And, we always say we have a VIP guest. He's kind of important to us and they'll bring us free dessert. And every single time we'll say, I can't eat another thing. My dessert was that last, bottom sirloin you brought around. You know what I mean? I can't eat another thing. And they'll go, oh, nonsense. I'm going to bring it anyway. Pick one or else I'm going to pick it for you. And then we go, all right, bring us this. And they bring out this, death by chocolate cake or whatever. And the plate gets cleaned between the three of us.
Love it.
The plate gets cleaned.
Yeah.
And the waitress the last time said the same thing. Yeah. Everybody always says they have no room. They don't want it. Never mind. And then we bring it and the plate's clean. Yeah. So I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Totally.
It's kind of like there's always room for Jell-O, except this wasn't Jell-O. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. If you only eat one thing and you get stuffed, you're hungry for something else. And here's the other thing. I think the stereotype is when you eat Chinese food, like you go to a Chinese buffet and you get full, 4 hours later, you could eat again.
Yeah.
Because there's just something about Chinese food. What's going on with that? Where is this full but not satisfied rhythm pattern? How does it actually originate? What are the foods we eat that fill us up but don't satisfy us? Is it a lot of bread? Is it a lot of rice? What is it?
It can be a lot of bread and a lot of rice. It can be a lot of carbs without protein, but it can similarly be a lot of protein without carbs. But why I think it happens with specific cuisines or in specific places is that there's another component involved, right? Is that we don't just eat to live, unfortunately, for many of us. However, I would argue that food is nourishment. And when I say nourishment, I mean that in multiple ways, right? It's nourishment for our bodies, but it's also nourishment for our souls. It reminds us of childhood. It is comfort in many, many ways, and we should celebrate that. It shouldn't be comfort all the time. It doesn't have to be comfort every day. It doesn't have to be comfort at every meal. But to some extent, we do want to keep that kind of emotional quality of food because it's what keeps us interested in trying new things and expanding our taste preferences and learning more about different flavors from right here at home and around the world, right? Like we get more experience the more different things we try. I can't say that from an unequivocal scientific standpoint, but I can say that from my experience and practices, the more that we get playful and get excited about trying new different types of flavors and cuisines, the more health promoting our overall dietary patterns become. So that's one thing. But back to your point about full but not satisfied syndrome, or that feeling of like, I could still eat even though I'm stuffed. One of these major components is feeling like we're simply not combining the right combinations of foods. We're not creating that satiety promoting combo of fiber and protein. We're kind of choosing one or the other, or leaning more heavily on one or the other. But the second thing, and I see this particularly with men, so I think this is unique to your audience, is that so many of us are walking around subclinically dehydrated. We're just not drinking enough.
So what you're saying is we're not drinking enough beer. We need a few more shots of Maker's Mark in our life, that sort of thing. Am I wrong?
It could be. Listen, it could be. Okay. But I would say that
I'm thinking it's not. You're just being nice.
If we just start By hydrating better, by getting more on top of our hydration in the form of water and any and all unsweetened beverages other than alcohol, then perhaps we would have a little bit more room for an extra shot of Maker's Mark. But I do see it so often, especially with men, not paying attention to those hydration signals because, and I find myself saying this so often, and it's one of those kind of like hallmark, sounds like an old wives' tale, but like is actually a real thing.
You're too young for that.
I know, right? Thank you for saying that. But it's like when you're thirsty, you're too late. I think that's a good one for people to keep in mind. When you're thirsty, you're already a little dehydrated.
You know what? One of my greatest life lessons I learned from a PBS children's show when my daughter, who was 3, was watching it. And you know what? It was one of the most all-time entertaining children's episodes for the adults watching. The name of the show, and I don't even know if people will remember this, it was a Muppet thing. It was called Bear in the Big Blue House. It had this guy dressed in a big old bear suit. And they were trying to teach 2.5, 3-year-old kids to be potty trained with this show, which I thought was a valiant effort, right? But it's a slippery slope to talk about in a children's show. And one of the things they said in that show is, if you think you need to go to the potty, you probably do need to go to the potty. And everybody also withholds going to the bathroom for ages, and it's just got to wreak havoc on your body. And then you pee like dark yellow, and you go, well, Jeebus, I haven't drank enough water today. And you realize all you had was your morning coffee, and then went all day. Yeah. And I don't mean went to the bathroom all day. I mean like you were go on the job all day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It really comes back to my whole point about consistency as well, because it's not just consistency of eating, it's also consistency of staying hydrated. And I think if we and I know that it sounds probably extremely simple, like to the point where you think that's too simple. I think we would all just be, better off for reminding ourselves that's exactly how we live our lives. We're going. Most of us today, even if we're working from home or if we work outside of our homes or if we're always traveling, like we're still not necessarily prioritizing having an eating and drinking schedule. So that's why I think like just taking some time to make it simpler on ourselves, like how am I going to make sure I get my water in today? Doesn't even have to be water. To be honest, Scott, it can even be unsweetened coffee. That still contributes to your daily hydration goal.
I got my cup right here.
I love it. I love to hear that. Yeah, exactly. So as long as we're consuming unsweetened beverages more often and staying on top of that, I feel like we're already on track to also feel those feelings of actual satiety when we're eating consistently.
Satiety is a great word. I'm thinking like high satiety.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
That's a word I've added to my lexicon today. All right. So let's bring this back around to the central point of this entire podcast show. Okay. Which is being better with women, being more attractive to women, being a better man. I know for a fact that when I'm hydrated, I look healthier. I look younger. I have more energy. It's right up there with sleep, right?
Yeah.
And being on a good circadian rhythm, as another guest recently talked about. Guys are sabotaging their own attractiveness to women by eating the wrong things, as we talked about, drinking the wrong things, or not eating or not drinking the right things. It can be an error of omission instead of commission. Yeah.
Totally.
And we go out on dates and we're cranky. Our T levels are low because our diet sucks. We look like hell. We feel like hell. We're on dates with our knees hurting because we haven't gotten the nutrients we need. Yeah. What are some quick hits you can give guys to feel better and look better immediately with just some simple diet changes? Simple ones.
Okay, so start with the consistency component. So you're going on a date, let's say. You want to make sure that you're having a good, satisfying breakfast before you go out. You're taking out a woman for lunch, let's say. So that would be a perfect example right there. But that also goes for dinner time. You don't want to go in starving and cranky. So your best bet would be to have a small snack that combines, again, protein and fiber before about an hour or a half an hour before you go out on that date at night.
Oh, man, if you go on a hangry date.
Yes, nothing worse.
Then you've already made a crappy first impression. And then by the time you've had a nice dinner and you're all happy-go-lucky again and cracking jokes, she's already checked out.
Right. She's like, what was with his mood at the beginning?
Right. This guy's psycho. He's a maniac. I mean, what was the big mood change? Yeah. He's a nut. Yeah.
Then I would say, remember to stay hydrated. That is mission critical.
Right on.
And then when it comes to what you're actually eating and drinking on that date, I often give this advice, especially to men, which is to drink at the top of your budget. So what do I mean by that exactly? So the best thing that you can do from an overall health standpoint, but also it's going to make you feel like a badass. And who doesn't want to feel more like a badass?
So in other words, I get a shot of Pappy Van Winkle instead of the Maker's Mark.
Exactly.
All right. Exactly. I like you already. I knew I liked you for a good reason.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm here for. The better your whole night is set up to be better. If you are drinking at the top of your budget, you're going for that top shelf, that maybe it's that Johnny Walker Blue that you're drinking on the rocks and you're sipping it rather than having multiple beers over the course of a meal, right? It's going to help you feel better in the moment, but also it tends to be that these top shelf spirits, particularly if you're drinking spirits on the rocks, you're sipping slower just by nature of what they are, as long as you're not, like actively choosing to throw them back, which I would imagine if you're having it with a meal and you're on a date with a woman, like you're probably not doing that. But you're going to choose to sip slower. You're going to savor the taste of whatever it is that you're drinking because you know that it tastes better than most of the other things that you're drinking most of the time. But it also gives you a chance to actually enjoy whatever it is that you're drinking with your meal and really treat alcohol like it's a part of your meal as well, which it absolutely is and can be and should be. But moreover, you're going to drink less overall. You're going to feel less crappy than if you were throwing back a number of beers all in one sitting. It just helps you feel better.
I think that's really good advice. By the way, you just revealed you're a Scotch person instead of a bourbon person. Shame on you.
A little bit.
Johnny Walker Blue is actually really good stuff.
Really both. It's great. It's great stuff. Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what? This is a little bit of a tangent, but not really. This is a running theme on this show is drinking good hard spirits.
Love it.
We were in, I believe, Johannesburg, South Africa, fixing to board our plane back home. And we were in the duty-free shop, and they were handing out samples of Johnny Walker. And it was a Johnny Walker Special Traveler's Reserve bottle.
Wow.
You couldn't get it anywhere but international duty-free shops. And you can only take one bottle back with you on the plane. This was $30 a bottle. And it was almost indistinguishable from Blue.
Wow.
And my wife and I both grabbed a bottle. And did we ever just sip it? Oh, we savored it. I brought friends over and said, you got to try this. I'm going to torture you because you can't get it. And I had friends coming over. Oh, man, that's some good stuff. I go, I know. And it's like the price of Johnny Walker Red. And I mean, they were pimping this stuff at the duty-free shop at the airport. And I mean, then we went back on another trip several months later. We were looking for it.
Wow. Yeah.
We tore this place apart looking for it. It was already done. It was a limited run. Isn't that awful? I mean, what torture?
Horrible.
How can you do that?
There's nothing better than a limited time offering like that. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, there's nothing worse.
Yes, I know. Like, what the hell's wrong with you people? This is the best thing you ever produced. Keep making more. What? Right. Is this not a for-profit business? Do something.
How dare you?
I know, right? How dare you? Exactly.
I agree. I totally agree.
I could just picture Greta Thunberg with a bottle of Johnny Walker in her hand, shaking it at the camera. All right. Men also, it is absolutely rampant that men aren't getting enough vitamins. They're not getting enough minerals. Mm-hmm. Turmeric, zinc, magnesium, all relatively inexpensive supplements men should be taking because unless you're eating a steady diet of like Ethiopian and Indian food, you're probably not getting enough turmeric, right? And then magnesium and zinc. What else would you add to that list that guys should be taking supplements for? Or are you anti-supplement and just eat better foods? What say you?
I think a lot of it can be done with food. So I'm actually not a fan of turmeric supplements because I think that one thing we know for sure from a lot of that research out there is that there's a reason why some of the more Eastern cuisines tend to be better dietary patterns. And a lot of that has to do with how we actually consume the turmeric, right? Like, so it's not just about the fact that turmeric is present in those cuisines. It's the fact that you eat the turmeric with lots of different veggies and lots of different whole grains and lots of legumes, right? So it's the combination of those two things.
Now, hold on a second before you go on. We had a guy come here and just sing the praises of turmeric supplements.
Interesting.
So that's the thing. There's a lot of conflicting information out there and we don't know what to make of it. This guy said the turmeric with curcumin, you have to have it that way. And it actually, if you're popping a lot of ibuprofen because your joints hurt all the time, it's probably because you're inflamed and everybody's inflamed. We know about inflammation. It's like the main cause of everything bad happening to our bodies. And turmeric is a supplement that makes you less inflamed. But you're saying eat the food.
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, I have not seen the data that really supports that turmeric can sort of undo the effects of chronic inflammation. It doesn't quite work like that, unfortunately, because it would be amazing if it did. But also there's so much evidence that shows us that anti-inflammatory dietary habits are ones that include lots of veggies and fruit, lots of 100% whole grains, lots of legumes. So like beans, chickpeas, lentils, peas, and that then also do include, of course, lean protein sources. So we want to get that lean protein in there. And unsweetened dairy products, also critical. But the number one thing that any one of us can do to start practicing a less inflammatory diet is to change our beverage patterns, to change the way that we consume beverages. So you'll see that I'm saying unsweetened beverages is how we want to stay hydrated. I think if we take a look at a lot of the different energy drinks that are out there, a lot of different like coffee drinks, even what we're adding to our coffee and tea, a lot of these sneaky sources of added sugar are coming from beverages and less from the foods that we choose to eat. So that would be the number one place that I would say if you're concerned about whether or not your dietary patterns are pro-inflammatory, take a look at your beverage pattern before you make any other changes.
And what do you say about all the fake sweeteners out there? Are you on the same train as everybody else about that?
No, I think that there's plenty of data that show us that these are safe in moderation. And when I say moderation, I mean that if you are, let's just be generous, if you are 160 pounds, which, I'm not sure quite where everyone listening really falls in that, but
nobody who cares about this show is 160 pounds.
All right. Well, let's just use this example just because it's my handy one, right? Okay. You'd have to consume more than 21 cans of diet soda per day to even be considered at risk for some of the harms, for some of the quote unquote increased risk of cancer, increased risk of diet related disease.
Well, the brain fog thing is the big crack on, say, aspartame.
Brain fog. And I have yet to see any data that support brain fog and aspartame. I'll be totally honest with you. Yeah.
Well, I've seen a lot of negative press about aspartame, and so you could go to like something else instead. I mean, a lot of the sports drinks, are moving away from aspartame anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Listen, I think any of the non-nutritive sweeteners, the one that works the best for you is the one that you tolerate the best. So as long as it's not giving you a headache or giving you a stomach ache or making you feel kind of crappy, then that's probably going to be the one that's the best bet for you. But I would say I hesitate to use the word moderation because it's exhausting. It's like so hard to explain what that actually means because it means something different to every individual, right?
Small 12 packs of Diet Coke a day.
I love it. But listen, like if you're having one or two diet beverages a day, you're in absolutely great shape. That's not going to affect anything other than hopefully creating a more healthful pattern of eating for you because you're not consuming sugar sweetened beverages.
I got to be honest with you. When I was on keto and I lost 50 pounds,
yeah.
By the way, the thing with keto is it causes a chemical reaction in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be like on keto sometimes because then you start all over from scratch.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to be on keto, you got to be on keto. There's no such thing as a cheat day on keto. So when people are like, you know what, I'll have some potatoes with dinner, but I'm mostly on keto. No, you're not. You're not on keto at all. Okay. So we've thrown that out on the table. Keto, you got to be draconian. Okay.
Yeah.
But this whole idea of drinking diet beverages. I've had people just hammer me for drinking diet beverages, and I do sometimes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My vice, and this is when I was on keto, like I said, and I was imposing draconian diet patterns upon myself. My vice, when I gave up alcohol, having a couple beers when I cook at night, which is how I relax, was to replace it with Rockstar Energy diet, the zeros. And I mean, it was kind of a nice replacement. And I didn't die from it, and I still lost the 50 pounds very quickly. But my wife was like, you got to stop drinking that crap. You might as well just be drinking the beers. And I'm trying to explain to her, no, I can't because I won't be on keto anymore if I do that.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, you know what? You should be on a different diet than this. We can't sustain it. We can't eat this with you, blah, blah, blah. My wife is sweet. She's wonderful. She loves me. But, she can't stand when I go on keto, even though she loves the results in me physically.
Mm-hmm.
The entire family has to eat differently because I am. And, I tell them, go eat pizza, go do what you're going to do, because they don't need to be on the same diet I am. But then again, it just affects everybody, and people start getting cranky. You should stop doing this. You should stop doing that. Everybody's got their shade tree diet advice, just like everybody's got their shade tree dating advice. But, kind of like in the dating world, in the diet world, you need some true expertise. So that's why I appreciate what you're telling us. Mm. We're running out of time.
Okay.
I just looked at the clock, mid-rant there. I would like to get lightning round answers from you.
Okay.
Elevator pitch size answers on a couple of things I don't think we've ever covered on this show.
Love it. Okay, let's do it.
You're the expert to do this. Gluten. Should everybody give up gluten?
No.
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 So you don't believe that wheat is inherently poisonous and people weren't meant to eat it?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. That's enough.
I'm trying to lightning round.
That was amazing. That was like a quick strike.
Yeah. Okay.
High fructose corn syrup.
The same as sugar.
Okay. I've heard it's worse. And if you actually look up how they make high fructose corn syrup and see how little corn is actually in it, you'll run the other way screaming with blood coming out of your ears. It's awful, right?
It really, the interesting thing about high fructose corn syrup, I'll go on a mini tangent here just for a second.
That's okay.
But the interesting thing about high fructose corn syrup is that there's been a lot out there about it. And a lot of that has to do, the controversy between high fructose corn syrup and sugar has a lot to do with lobbyists on each side of the equation. So sugar lobbyists and high fructose corn syrup lobbyists. And a lot of what's out there, really, there's not enough human data to be able to say that this is something so harmful or troublesome or in any way different from just over consuming sugar. It's just the foods that you find high fructose corn syrup in, like sugar sweetened sodas, right? Being the perfect example. We consume those a lot easier than we do with let's say a baked good that's made with sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup. So
Understood.
It's really about the foods that you find it in and less about the compound itself.
Last question. Are vegans weird? I loaded that one up and took a shot, didn't I?
I love it. I love this question. Yes and no. I'm going to say yes and no. Okay. So just to be perfectly diplomatic, listen, I'm never here to shame or judge anyone else's food choices ever. I can only give advice based on my experience and both the application of research in real life practice. So I can only tell you that when people choose a vegan diet for the sake of health, of quote unquote health, this is typically a mistake. And it's a very tricky one to actually get right. So we do need some types of animal protein products in order to really feel our best. I've found that to be true for most people. There are other people who choose veganism based on spiritual reasons, based on just their own moral, ethical reasons. And that's none of my business, right? So I can help you if you're looking to make a vegan diet part of your life for reasons that have nothing to do with health. But of course, I just want you to go in with your eyes wide open. It's not better for the planet. We have no data that tells us that. And it's not better for human health. We have no data that tells us that either. So just as long as you're going in with your eyes wide open on veganism, power to you. I'm
mildly going to apologize for the simple fact that I thought of another question.
Tell me.
Okay, so that wasn't the last question. I was untruthful. This is. Okay.
Okay.
Is pork really that disgusting?
No, pork can be great. Pork chop can be an amazing choice. Absolutely. Definitely a heart-healthy food, pork chop.
Well, no, here's why I asked, because there are all these statements made on the internet about how just gross pigs are. They don't sweat. They are inherently poisonous. The Old Testament is right. Pigs are just disgusting, and you're just filling your body with toxins by eating any pork. So that's not true.
Not true.
That's political.
Not true. That's political and also potentially spiritual. So if you're choosing not to eat pork because of reasons, sure, but it's certainly not data driven. No.
Well, Jaclyn London, you're my favorite dietitian. You're telling me to drink Johnny Walker Blue, eat more bacon, have a couple Diet Cokes, and lose some weight. You're my huckleberry.
That's all I'm here to say, Scott. That's
you should raise your hourly rate.
I'm definitely going to do that.
Her name is Jaclyn London. She's a registered dietitian, author, consultant, and most of all, a whole hell of a lot of fun to have on the show. I hope you'll come back.
I absolutely will. I would love to. This has been fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Because, you've listed a whole bunch of other topics that we haven't even touched upon that would be just magnificent fun to talk about. I would like to have you on as a regular. This has just been way too much fun.
I would love that.
Me too. You can go to mountaintoppodcast.com/London, and we will give you a travel guide so you can tour the West End. No, I'm kidding. You will go to Jaclyn London's website at mountaintoppodcast.com/London, where she will show you a whole bunch of other things you can't believe you're allowed to eat and actually be healthy. As long as you drink a lot of water, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And she also has a very popular Instagram channel, and I will link to that in the show notes as well. Jaclyn London, what a joy. What a pleasure. You're a delight. Thank you so much for joining us today. And indeed, I am planning that you come back and visit us.
Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And guys, if you have not been to mountaintoppodcast.com lately, we are partnering with the folks over at herosoap.com to bring you something extremely special that I have my heart and soul in, and it is going to change the way you take care of yourself as a man. Look for an announcement from that probably within the next several months, okay? But I did want to kind of give you a preliminary, bit of information there that we're working on that. Meanwhile, those guys have shampoo. They have brand new scents of soap. All of them are incredibly manly. Matter of fact, that's what kind of kicked me off the fence proverbially and helped me make a decision to prioritize getting something to you guys that I think none of you will have ever seen before that is going to change the way, well, certainly you wake up in the morning and get ready for work. And also, Jocko Willink's company, Origin in Maine, has completely revamped their website. Man, the growth these guys have experienced and well-deserved at Origin in Maine over the past few years is just phenomenal. And it's because they make great products, everything across the board, from the supplements, from the jeans to the boots to the BJJ gis to the hunting and fishing gear. Everything they've got is top quality. Go to mountaintoppodcast.com, visit Hero Soap and or Origin from there. Also, the guys at keyport.com. The number one way to trade in your old school, I don't know, I guess your penknife, something your grandpa would have carried, and get dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century with your everyday carry item. Man, you will be so glad you invested in a Keyport. I carry mine every day, and it comes in handy constantly. Imagine having, for example, a blade that will cut through anything except you, right? When you open it or leave it in your pocket or whatever. Yeah, new school stuff, fantastic technology there. You can use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 with any of our sponsors to get 10% off, and tell them I sent you. They need to know that, right? Also, if you guys haven't talked to me about how to change your life with women, the phone call with me for 25 or 30 minutes is free. You can sign up at mountaintoppodcast.com and get that done. Also, gentlemen, if you have not gotten your hands, well, I guess proverbially speaking, subjectively speaking, gotten your eyes on, maybe if not your hands, my latest audio program, Women and AI, that is life-changing. And here's the thing about that audio program. Most of you guys listening don't even realize how important it is to get that audio program just yet, because you're not up to speed on how AI is already changing your life. AI is going on. It's here. It's not a fad. It's going to change how we all live in ways that are maybe even subtle to us. And nowhere in no particular category is it more important to get your head on straight relative to AI's impact than when it comes to dating and relating to women. Women in AI, it'll cost you less than a Starbucks date, but it will change your perspective. You can go to mountaintoppodcast.com/AI to get your copy of that. And I also indeed look forward to talking to you guys on the phone. If you have not ever talked to me on the phone, I'm exactly who you think I'm going to be, except I usually talk slower. Jaclyn had that effect on me today. I'm back on the East Coast. And we will talk about how to get better with women. And I will promise you results in advance when you do that. Go ahead and sign up, get all the goodies and more at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until we talk again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes And while you're there, sign up for the free X and Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.